It's very nice. So what does an obsessed conservationist do on the weekends? Mostly I obsess on killing invasive species, but otherwise when it's rainy I stay indoors and play on the computer and do genealogy. So you guys know probably a lot more about genealogy than I do, so, but I know a fair amount by now, having done this. So if you have any ideas afterwards, I'd love to hear them, any dead points. So, but this is called Your How Tall. It's a genealogical odyssey from Wahiawa to Germany. And so to start with, I'm going to ask my partner Gigi, about whom this is really about, to stand up here. Okay, so.
This isn't about me.
Okay, are you ready? Okay. Okay, wait, where's my, here we go. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. Yeah. It's him. So that's Gigi's long-lost cousin in Hamdorf, Germany. He's 7.5 feet tall.
7.5 feet?
Okay, thank you for being the prop. You can sure. Okay, so here, part one of the story is we had a motive. We had a European river cruise. We wanted to go from Budapest to Amsterdam. And so there we were, and we thought, maybe we can make a little adventure out of it. Number two motive. We didn't know where Gigi was from. Aunt Norma from Eastern Oregon mentioned Two Swedes Canyon. And so, you know, she looks a little Swedish, a little German. We know there's some German there. The Swedes part actually turns out to be Denmark. But we're going to be talking about the German side here. And motive also was her birthday, so I'm not going to say which birthday it was, but a good opportunity to collect her family history. So, but the real trigger was the traffic jams on the Karsten Thought Bridge.
What? Wait a minute.
For months we heard newscasts when the Karsten Thought Bridge was shut down for repairs. So. You know, we were saying, wait a second, it's not Karsten Thought, it's
Karsten Todt.
Karsten Todt. That's really how you say it. It's German. So one day, sitting in my office, I heard that they're about to reopen. So I told Gigi, I sent her a little email, because, well, she knew Karsten Todt happened to be Gigi's grandfather. And Gigi contributed to the history of Wahiawa. Because her grandfather in the 20s and early 30s he worked for Dole, but he was the baseball camp coach. Led him to champions in 1926. Very beloved guy. So he happened to have a bridge named after him when he died. So there's the Wahiawa book. You guys know that book? Great history.
Wait, let me write this down, please.
Yeah. And I actually, somehow I have it on PDF if anyone is interested in.
Did you copy it yourself?
No, I don't think so.
It must be available somewhere.
I would call the library in Wahiawa, for starters. But this was published in about 1982. It's great, full of history of Wahiawa. And that's Karsten Todt on the right, and Gigi's grandmother on the left, and your mother's middle, top middle. Okay, so that's from the family album. In 1975, Gigi arranged to have a plaque put on the bridge in honor of, because it was named the Karsten Todt Bridge, so she's got a good sense of history. So
It had no plaque on it.
and it had no plaque. I don't think I told us this. It had no plaque. So she delivered a plaque to the Department of Transportation. They posted it on the bridge, and there it still is. This is Gigi's grandson, Karsten, in 1997, and her daughter, Julie. Karsten, next to the Karsten Todt Bridge. And he lived with us for 4 years, half the year, going to school here, and so we take great credit in the fact that in 2013 He's got his school humanitarian award. So Karsten is, this is 5 generations now of Karstens. So the bridge was reopening. I sent Gigi an email. I said, preserve your legacy. The bridge is reopened. Call the news stations and let them know how to pronounce the name Tote. And I gave her the phone numbers of the news stations. So lo and behold, she ended up on the news. She did a piece. They called up. They said, we'd like to interview you. They said, where would you like to be interviewed? And she said, the bridge. So nice little story. So end of that story, except that somebody happened to be doing a Google search.
Went to the text.
Okay, so this is from a guy named Norman Todt. He's in Germany, Ratingen, Germany, which is next to Dusseldorf. He says, and this is an email system that Gigi doesn't even use, but it showed up somewhere. I saw the Karsten Todt report on YouTube yesterday. I think that Karsten Todt and my grandfather, Johannes Todt, who emigrated from Germany to Brazil via Hawaii, were related. We should exchange info. And it turns out that Johannes Todt actually arrived either at the same time or slightly before, in the early 1900s, lived here for a little while, and then they lived in Wahiawa, and they worked for Dole. And that side of the family lore is that Johannes Todt got a little too familiar with James Dole's daughter, so he was sent off to Brazil. So, they had actually come in 2007, something we totally missed, but it was in the Kokua line. I'm looking for some special information about a relative, Karsten Todt. The bridge is named after him in anticipation of a trip to Hawaii. We'd like to know why. We know he was active, and he died in 1932. So, Norman, cousin Norman, is now our best friend. So this sort of, yeah.
Just a question, being involved in aviation for many years, how did the airplane bridge fit into
I have no idea.
No, okay.
She may have mixed her metaphors, because it wasn't the airplane bridge.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I thought it was a noise that made.
Yeah, it was, right. It
Yeah.
was the landing strip material
Right.
that they've replaced it.
Yeah,
The metal green.
Yeah.
yeah, because your tires make a difference.
So you know this stuff, but just so you can see the path here, our main source was Gigi's box in the attic. Great stuff, really great stuff. Lots of really cool stuff. Went to the archives, the Wahiawa history book, newspapers that we found at the archives and online, cemetery records. Here and in Germany, church records. Even the University of Hawaii Library had records. Phone books were online. Most of the information I have about Johannes Todt actually came from the phone books. He was a rancher in Wahiawa and also worked for the James Dole Company. So, people sources. Gigi herself, Aunt Norma, different side of the family, but we had a long interview with her some years back before she passed away, cousin Norman. His mother, Rose, and her mother-in-law, Cecilia is her husband's sister, so Norman's aunt. And she passed away in August, actually before we were able to talk to her. She lived in Sao Paulo. The innkeeper, you'll hear about. Horst and Bridget, you'll hear about. And then online sources. I mostly used Ancestry.com. When I got stuck, I went to FamilySearch.org. And also, I used Google a fair amount. But I went back and forth. But mainly, I stuck with Ancestry. But I did find that when I was stuck on one, if I went to another source, I might make a breakthrough. Okay, so here's Germany. So we were going on a cruise along the Rhine and Main and Danube and ending up, I guess, up through here and ending up in Amsterdam. Gigi's family, half is from here and half is from up here, Schleswig-Holstein. Pretty good, huh? Schleswig-Holstein. I practiced it. Here's Hamburg, where a lot of people emigrated from. Holstein, think Holstein cows. The Kiel Canal goes, I guess right about here is where it goes this is the end of Germany, but the rest of the Jutland Peninsula is Denmark. So we ended up right about here, right next to the Kiel Canal. Okay, this is from the Box in the Attic, naturalization paper. I think I also found it online. Gives a little bit of information, confirms that he lived in Wahiawa. This is a World War I draft registration card. This one says he's from Hamdorf. What we wanted to do is go visit, I wanted to identify the towns in Europe that Gigi's family was from, but I didn't know. So I did through this, because most of the records said he was from Germany, or some of them said he was from Schleswig-Holstein.
Prussia.
Some said Prussia because the boundaries changed, right? But this one actually said, in 1918, said Hamdorf. So that was great, because Hamdorf is a tiny little place. So. Hamburg is the port, but Hamdorf is a little dairy village up in the north. This one, I forgot where I got it, but I actually think I found this in a Google search online that took me to some digitized records at the University of Hawaii. So this is 1919. Karsten Todt in Wahiawa had a dairy farm. This is an article about tuberculosis immunizations and the like. So what do you know? He's from Holstein. He's got a dairy farm on the side. So things are starting to fit together here. Found his death records in the archives. Found some newspaper articles at the archives. Now this was a major important thing that I never would have connected a lot of dots without. So in the box in the attic was, this happened to be Karsten Todt's brother, died in Sonoma, California in 1912. I don't know why he was up there. But he went up there from here and took care of the will. And it actually lists all of the heirs. So the name of his parents and the name of every sibling. And some of them said who the daughters were married to. Christina Todt Grieve, a sister residing in Breisholtz, which turns out to be right next door to Hamdorf, right on the Kiel Canal. So that was a super valuable piece of information. Okay, now we start to communicate with Norman's mother, Rose. Okay, so she says, first of all, Karsten and Johann were not brothers. They were cousins. That was the whole bit about names got very, very confusing because there were a lot of Johanns and yeah, and a lot of Jürgens and Johann and Johannes and Jürgen Todt, born in 1890, married Elise Westphal. So anyway, we started to put the names together here. Yeah. I even found Rose's immigration card online. I don't think Norman was happy that I found this, because this is 1965, I think, this document, 63, when they immigrated to Los Angeles. Norman grew up in Los Angeles, went to Hastings Law School. He's a lawyer in Germany because his wife is from Budapest. His wife is from Budapest, and so they both spoke German, so they figured they'd settle there. Okay. And then the result of all of this was the family book. So what I ended up doing was collecting all my information going back 5 generations. I collected it all on Ancestry. I uploaded some pictures and some supplemental information, and then I went through their publishing process to get it printed. And it cost about $120 bucks. It's a great compilation the way they did it. The only thing I don't like is it's not very high resolution, so some of the documents that are printed are fuzzy, but it's got it all in one place. And so we actually took this with us to Hamdorf, which turned out to be very valuable. Also, feel free. Okay, so now here we are in Europe. So here we are. Norman lives in Dusseldorf. We happen to be going through Cologne on our cruise, so we paid him a visit. We met up for lunch. We ended up here. We actually met Ed and Audrey. We sent my parents home and had a little kids holo holo. And we drove up through Bremen, through Hamburg, up to here, this is the border between Germany and Denmark. So we drove up to Hamdorf. And it was supposed to be a 5-hour drive, and it was longer. This is us meeting Norman and his wife and kids on the cruise in Cologne. There you go. Long lost cousins. And then we arrived in Hamdorf. So we arrived here at about 6 o'clock at night. We only had until about 10 the next morning. Hamdorf is right here. It's just a little dairy town, in dairy farming town. This is the Kiel Canal. This is the Eider River. It has an intersection, and it has an inn. So this is the Gasthof La Friends. There's our other friends. Established in 1881, and so we went right up, signed in, and got to be best friends with the innkeeper, Christoph La Friends, 6th generation innkeeper. So,
He's tall too. Yes.
yeah. And actually, Ed went right up to him and started grilling him on who the totes were in town, and he didn't know. So so we pulled out this book, and we started going through names, and so that brings us back to this. And he didn't recognize any totes, but he started to recognize Grieve, and he started to recognize Westphal, and all the in-law names, and also from neighboring towns. So he spoke broken English, and he said, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. And then he came back and he said, okay, Horst and Bridget will be here at 8 o'clock. So there we have it. So we met Horst, who is, I believe his grandfather and Gigi's grandfather were cousins. And they came at 8 o'clock at night, and then we spent the entire rest of the evening with them until midnight. And it was really, really cool. And Bridget spoke pretty good English, so and he didn't speak any English. So they took us. This is the family farm that Gigi's grandfather grew up on. Right there in town. The house had just been torn down 3 months ago, but it was just like the next door neighbor one. So these are small dairy farms, basically what they are, all around this area. Then they took us to the church, so Lutheran, German Lutheran church, and of course the cemetery. That's Horst's father and mother, and she is a tote. So, filling in here. So, I recognize some other friends there. Jürgen Todt, who married Elise Westphal. There. We had, up in the attic was a engagement card for Christine and Johannes Todt, which I think is a different Johannes from the one that went to Hawaii. But there they are. So this was really cool. This was really cool.
Beautiful cemetery.
It was a beautiful cemetery, which a note about cemeteries. So they're good there for 35 years, as it turns out. You when you buy your plot, it's good for 35 years. And then, unless somebody pays to re-up you, you're out of there. They take the headstone and put it somewhere else. I guess they take the bones and put the skulls in one pile and the leg bones in another pile. And so it's a nice, clean, very modern, current cemetery, and you couldn't get back very far in the cemetery.
Wow.
The church records used to be kept at the church, but since 1875, they are now kept at the parish, in a central church records place in the parish in nearby Rendsburg, which is 6 miles away, and we did not get a chance to go there. So that was very shocking.
How much did it cost to keep the, for 35 years?
I don't know. It's probably about the same as you would pay for a full-time plot.
Interesting.
He took us, this is Christine and Johannes's, his grandparents. I think they were his I forget. But Thatch House, this is like a half a block from the church and the cemetery, all in one compact little. So Thatch House, beautiful house, beautiful house, still around. This is his side of the family's dairy farms. They had a whole street all named after, all part of his side of the family, the other side. And here is his nephew, cousin Niels. He's an organic dairy farmer right in this town. Had a great operation there, super nice guy. We got to meet the calves that were born yesterday. We got to go out to the pasture. And then if you see this little thing here, this is getting to be about 9:30 at night, so it's late. They said, "Have you been to the Kiel Canal?" We said, "No." They said, "Well, those are the cargo ships going by." So they took us to Bryceholtz, which is like a mile away, where he and Ed totally got into a long sort of broken English discussion of cargo ships and Panama Canal and the Kiel Canal and all that. So that was very cool. And then they took us to their home and pulled out all the family albums, which was really amazing, and served us wine in a 100-year-old hand-blown glass, 100 or older, from his grandmother, and then took us through the family albums. Hamdorf by Rendsburg. I forgot to mention, when we first got to the inn, Gasthof La Friends, I happened to mention Hamdorf Segeberg, and the innkeeper said, "Segeberg, you're in the wrong town." Which I didn't want to hear because we had just spent 8 hours driving to this town. And we didn't have time for it to be the wrong town. But it turned out there is another small town called Hamdorf by Segeberg, but we actually were in the right place, Hamdorf by Rendsburg. Some of their, farming community, dairy farming, pasture, alfalfa. There's another thatch house. So this is just sitting at I'm just taking pictures while we're sitting at the kitchen table there. World War I, this is his grandfather in World War I. And this is his grandfather's journal in World War I. And he kept it for 4 years. And every month he made an entry. And so you flip through that. You can hardly read the writing anymore. But there's like all the major battles, He's got like his little version of it right there. And it's really, really cool.
But it was written in a form of German that isn't spoken now.
Yeah.
So they didn't know how to read it either.
Yeah. They have trouble reading it too.
Somebody can.
And then you never know what you're going to find. This is their family in World War II. So that was kind of scary. Yeah. They took us to the church the next morning, and the church actually has a memorial of all of the people who died in World War I on one side and World War II on another side. So it's just really interesting to sort of see the world from the inside out, when you're there. And then I spent a good amount of time while I was there trying to organize all the names and figure out who was related to whom, so that I could check it with Horst before we left. And he more or less agreed with what I came up with. You can't read this, but I made a whole table. We got our 5 generations. We got 6 generations, I think, and so I'm pretty sure it's right. But I really wanted to go to the church records in Rendsburg to just confirm all of that. So that's save that for a grandkids adventure. And that was it. That was the end of Hamdorf.
Oh dear. And there's Rendsburg, so far. So close and so far.
So just a couple follow-up things. I immediately, when I got back, wrote like a 3 or 4 page just summary of all of the stuff that, you know, they had told us. Just people's names, contact information. I just wrote it all down, and I sent it actually to Norman and to Rose, just so it would be documented. Gigi wrote a thank you letter in German.
Really? Pretty clever.
Wow.
How did you do that, Gigi?
There's an app. And you speak English, and it comes out speaking German and writing German. And it repeats it in English as well, so you know they're not saying, you know, your pig has come in my house and eaten my uncle's shoe. It actually says, I enjoyed meeting you very much. So that was, I was pretty certain it was
No, what was
accurate.
this?
Well, no, okay, if you have a translation, sometimes it translates funny.
So she's saying it translated back to English.
What translated back then?
Oh, I said German, first it said in German what I said, so I.
And
It's
for
an
sure.
app. It's an
It's an
app.
app.
It's a,
My
it's
phone.
a computer
Yeah.
program.
Wonderful.
I spoke English, it showed me what I said in English, and then it came out in German.
Oh, my.
And
What's the app?
Uh-huh,
What is the app?
I'll let you know in a minute, I'm recording this, so I can't see, but it's astounding.
And we sent, when we got back, we sent thank you packages with macadamia nuts and chocolate and Hawaiian sea salt, and for Christoph, the innkeeper, a koa pen, because they were all so helpful. And so then Christoph friended Gigi on Facebook. Very sweet. All right. That's pretty much it. So I want to just tell you kind of what comes to mind for me for my lessons learned here. So, of course, the most important is stewarding a sense of history, which I think Gigi had done a super job of. And so that's why we had, you know, the resources available. On other people's genealogy, I did use a lot where I got stuck. Other family trees that I found on Ancestry.com that they had made public. Some of them were wrong, and so I had to be careful to, you know, if I imported it, sometimes I ended up having to undo all of that. I did not put hers public. I'm ambivalent about that still. So I feel a little guilty about that. But I did, the one thing I did was I put Karsten's picture. There's a place there where you can put a picture of the person. And so I did that for the first generation. Basically the people I had pictures of it up, and lo and behold, one time in a Google search it showed up. So even that was not private. So I still have mixed feelings about all that. Okay, in-country URLs. This was a big discovery. So this is what a search on Google for Tot and Hamdorf shows up. But when I was in Germany, it was the German Google. And so you can actually Google and Germany, and it'll come up www.google.de for Deutsch. And so you can do that for here, but you have to get into the German Google. So you can do this for any country, right? But you have to get into there. There's just a lot more information in country because you're in their system. You would think if you just do a Google search, you would get global information, but it's
Would you
just.
want it?
Why would you want it?
But would you want it?
Yeah, because you know I found stuff there.
Of course.
Karsten Tot. So I found stuff there. Or if I wanted to find out, who the
Right.
the minister of the church was or whatever, you don't find it on Google US. You can find it. I found some, records of somebody named Johannes Todt that was escaping the German secret police in World War I. I don't know if they're related, but interesting stuff. It's hard. There's not a lot there, but it's a little insider view.
So that was Google D.
D.
.de. www.google. But I actually got it easier just to go in your search thing and say Google Germany,
Yeah.
and it came up.
There's the UK also.
Yeah, UK, Australia.
It's in German.
It's in German. You can have it translated to English. Some of the stuff comes up in English, but mostly it's in German. Borders change. We talked about that, but this particular area had gone back and forth between Germany and Denmark for centuries. So, which is why the whole two Swedes part was interesting too, because it was a different part. Her Danish relatives, we actually went up to the next day. We didn't meet anybody there, but it was another 5 hours plus traffic jam to a different dairy town up in Denmark. But that whole area was, just went back and forth. Cemetery practices we talked about. Camera with GPS. I gave my dad for his birthday a really nice small camera with a GPS thing, which I promptly stole from him for the entire trip. So
She did return it.
every picture that we took that was outdoors that could access the satellite, when you have it in, I use Picasa. So Picasa will search your whole computer for all of your images and put a little thumbnail so you can look at them really quickly. And there's a little panel that swings out if you press a button, and it'll give you a map of where that picture was taken. So I actually used it a lot when I went back and identified exactly, even down to the block. Was I at the cemetery here? How close was the thatch house to the church? And where was the dairy farm in connection to downtown? So I used that a lot. It was very accurate.
How did you know it had GPS?
You pay for it's the more expensive camera. Yeah, it's just a small, whatever it is, Nikon or Canon or something. But it's a good camera, but you pay extra. It's like $100 extra. It has, it'll be less.
And
as
your
the-
phone has GPS.
Your phone, your iPhone. If you take a picture of the iPhone, that has it too. Okay, the snipping tool. I love. Various computer systems have different ways of doing screen captures. So if I found something online, for example, like the Facebook friend thing, you can do, I'll show you in a second, you can do the snipping tool to save the image.
Screenshot.
Yeah, it's kind of a screenshot thing. Okay, hurry, you know that, but Cecilia died in August, So there went a whole way to confirm who was related to whom. And then lastly, it's really fun. I mean, honestly, I spent 6 months sitting in my easy chair in the living room, obsessing on this. So,
Did you work?
on the weekends. Okay, and that's it. Let me show you the snipping tool. This is in Windows. You go here. It's not here. So in mine, you go